I think we need to now move on to University of Central Florida. President Hitt, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to all, and our thanks for the opportunity to present our proposal for UCF College of Dental Medicine. Dr. Deborah German, our Medical Dean and Vice President for Medical Affairs, and Bill Merck, our CFO, and I are pleased to discuss with you a further expansion of healthcare education in the medical city at Lake Nona in Orlando. Our presentation will include a discussion of the need for additional dentists and the demand for dental training. And please note the distinction we're making, need and demand. The distinction between those two is very important in our presentation. Deb will outline for you the proposed four-year curriculum for the college, and Bill will discuss the financial details of the project. I will then briefly review the strong community support that UCF has for the project, and will then entertain any questions you may have. Nationally, universities are being asked to seek support for higher education beyond the state legislatures, and several current proposals for educational reform strongly urge private support for public education. Our budget model begins with a $10 million philanthropic gift from a donor who wants to see us establish a dental school. Using that gift, we've developed a business plan that will create a self-sustaining school by 2018. Even better, in little more than a decade, the dental school will return significant income to UCF's health science program. We're asking for no state support now or in the future for this project. In fact, our Board of Trustees has formally resolved that the School of Dental Medicine, quote, will be built and operated permanently without state appropriation, close quote. I'm happy to provide my assurances as president as well. 5.5 years ago, I came before this board with a plan, a partner, and a promise. I asked the governors to join our vision to create a new economic engine for Central Florida. Tavistock Group held a large undeveloped parcel of land, a greenfield, in southeast Orlando, and it sought a suitable development opportunity. UCF saw a need for a medical school. Together, we had a vision that the greenfield in southeast Orlando could be transformed into a healthcare center that would transform the economy of Central Florida. And we promised this board that we would be good stewards of the state revenues that you sought on our behalf and granted us. You listened to our plan, you approved it, and we went to work. We received the generous gift of 50 acres of land in Lake Nona and a $12.5 million challenge grant from the Tavistock Group. And a radical transformation began on that greenfield, just one expressway exit from the Orlando International Airport. The vision brought Central Floridians together as nothing has since Disney World. For a while, we raised approximately $500,000 a day from private donors. And I have to say it was the only time in my career that people called me up to ask how they would donate to a project. Most of the presidents here, I suspect, would say that is an unusual event. 3 years later, Lake Nona has more concrete. Still a green field, but it has a lot of concrete. On the land inside the red circle shown on the screen, the innovative College of Medicine Medical Education building was constructed with no state appropriations. And it opened last spring on time and within budget. On the right of the education building, you see the rectangular Burnett Biomedical Sciences building, which houses state-of-the-art research labs. These two buildings are the heart of the UCF Health Sciences campus at Lake Nona, and they've been a catalyst for the development of a medical city. We believe that a UCF College of Dental Medicine is a logical extension of the medical city that is evolving in Central Florida. We started with a plan, a partner, and a promise. Today, a medical city has emerged at Lake Nona that has expanded upon our original plan, added many new partners, and kept our promise. 5 months to the day after you approved the College of Medicine, Sanford Burnham Medical Research Institute chose Lake Nona as its Eastern United States campus. Next, the VA chose Lake Nona as the site for its second largest hospital in the country, which is approaching a $900 million project. The VA has also decided that the Lake Nona VA Hospital will be the national center for its simulation and modeling program. Nemours Children's Hospital decided to join the healthcare facilities at Lake Nona, and its 95-bed hospital has quickly become a landmark in the medical city. The University of Florida is completing a $50 million building project that will be home to a branch of the UF College of Pharmacy. And MD Anderson's Cancer Research Institute is sharing facilities in the UCF Biomedical Sciences building, pending development of their own expansion plans. With more than $2 billion worth of construction completed and approximately $1 billion additional underway, the Lake Nona Greenfield has clearly fulfilled its plan, its partnerships, and its promise. Some of you are all too familiar with this general information, so I won't dwell on it. But the impressive development of Lake Nona has been accomplished through the effort of many effective collaborations. UCF is a partnership university, and the results of those partnerships have created a significant economic benefit for Central Florida. By the end of 2017, the planned elements of the medical city are projected to result in, as you can see, an annual economic impact of $7.6 billion, more than 30,000 jobs, and $2.8 billion in annual wages and $460 million in annual tax revenues. Now I'll ask Deb German to come forward and share with you some additional observations.
Thank you, Dr. Hitt. Good afternoon, and thank you for your attention. We are on target with what we promised in our medical city. And many of you know that I came here to build the medical school in that medical city. And the reason I came here was because I saw the opportunity for Florida to build what would one day be a national model and a global destination for healthcare, research, and medical education. Today we're here to talk about the dental medicine program, which is an integral part of that larger plan that was promised 5 years ago. And the dental program will be part of the core, the Academic Health Science Center of UCF that anchors that medical city. Dr. Hitt has shown you the 700 acres that's part of 7,000 acres that is the medical city. What I would like to do is show you the 50 acres that belong to all of us and specifically to UCF. What you see up on the screen, and I'm going to try to use the laser pointer, and I'll use it on this screen for those of you who want to follow along. What you see are the two buildings that currently exist, the Medical Education Building and the Biomedical Sciences Research Building. This is the UCF Health Sciences campus plan going forward. Our goal is to create a high-quality dental program that will be fully integrated with the medical school to create competent, caring dentists. And the program will take advantage of synergies and be integrated in research, in care for the patients, and in our educational programs. And you can see circled in red the location of the facility that we will build adjacent to the medical education facility for the education of our dental students. What I'd like to do next is show you a little bit more about that facility. The building will be a 120,000 square foot building, and it will include classroom, student spaces, specialized simulation laboratory, office space, faculty and staff and administrators, and a 200-chair primary dental care clinic. The cost of the building is $42.8 million. We will leverage space in the medical school. The proximity to the medical education building allows us to do that and to integrate programs. Some of the specialized space that's already built and available for this includes a state-of-the-art anatomy lab, a microscopy lab, a health sciences library, lecture halls, and cafe. So you've seen our vision and our physical plan. There are questions that we must answer for you. Here are the questions. Is there a need for more dentists? Is there a need for dental care in Central Florida? Are there qualified students, and can they pay the market rate tuition that UCF's college will charge? What does our curriculum look like? And last but not least, how will we pay for it? So next I want to answer those questions for you. So this is a busy slide, but I'll walk you through it. Is there a need for more dentists? In 2008, the Florida Department of Health reported more dentists retiring than graduating, and they noted a growing population implying a need for more dentists. Okay? 2008, we need more dentists. Last spring, the Florida Department of Health reported to you that the current licensing rate of new dentists will more than offset the attrition associated with retirement. Now, those statements seem to be a little at odds with one another. And both of these analyses are true. But the second analysis did not consider population growth, did not consider the need for increased service levels, and did not even consider the mortality of the existing dentists. And the analysis noted that further analyses taking these things into account needed to be done. So we did it. We conducted those analyses and incorporated mortality, service, and population growth into the study. The findings from these analyses are up here on the slide, and they show that there are new dentist needs in Florida. And the numbers come out to be 355 to 504 new dentists per year through the year 2050. Currently, the two dental schools graduate about 180 students, and about 150 stay and practice in Florida. So if you add those to the mix, because they're already graduating, there's a need for 205 to 354 dentists per year. So we conclude that there is a need for more dentists in Florida. And this fits with national data. Florida has 50.3 dentists per 100,000 population, and the national average is 60 per 100,000. And we rank 29th out of 50 states in the number of dentists per year. I'm sorry, the number of dentists per capita. So we conclude that there is a need for new dentists in Florida. And the next question, is there a need for dental care in Central Florida? Okay. Central Florida is the fastest growing region in the state and will likely have the largest share of population growth. And this population will need dental care. The growth was not considered, again, in that Florida Department of Health study. In addition to the population growth, Central Florida also has significant underserved population without dental care. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Florida is the third highest state in shortage areas, and 39 of the 224 shortage areas, dental shortage areas in Florida, are in Central Florida. Leslie Smith of the Central Florida Family Health Center reported that the demands for dental care are great and continue to grow. Now, we can't pretend that our dental school will solve the problem of the underserved. It would take more than a dental school to do that. But the 200-chair dental primary care clinic and the clinical outreach programs that we have planned as part of our curriculum will have an impact on Central Florida that does not exist today, and will address some of that problem. So we conclude, yes, there is a need for dental care in Central Florida. Next question. Are there qualified students? And will they be able to pay that market rate tuition? In 2009, nationally, there were 12,202 applicants to dental schools. This is across the entire nation. About 42% of them were accepted. That leads us to believe that nationally there are a large number of applicants who are not accepted to dental school. 612 of those 12,000 applicants were Florida residents who applied to dental school. 233 were accepted, about 38%, and 125 went to in-state dental schools, and 108 went out of state. So about 20% of the Florida resident applicants were accepted by a Florida dental school. Another interesting piece of information, our Florida dental schools attract students with dental admission test scores and GPAs above the national average. And this suggests that Florida schools are attractive and can compete nationally for the very best students. So, based on these data, we conclude that there's a sufficient pool of qualified applicants who would apply and enroll at UCF. Now, we don't think that UCF will create significant competition for the University of Florida, because Florida residents will have a financial advantage to go to the University of Florida, the lower tuition. And because UCF will not receive state appropriations, our recruitment can have a more national focus. We still have that affordability question. I'm going to walk you through this. It looks complicated, but it's actually very simple. So what I'd like you all to do is, you can look up here. This is a simple scatter graph of the 2009 non-resident tuition at all dental schools. Each one of those blue dots represents a dental school, and these are US dollars, and this shows the tuition of every dental school arranged basically alphabetically on this chart. What we did was we took the proposed tuition for UCF, there's a 3% inflation factor, and we backed it to 2009, okay? And 2009 is the year for which we have the most recent data. And here's what you can see. The UCF tuition, $48,025, is lower than the current non-resident tuition that is charged by University of Florida and Nova Southeastern. We will be charging our UCF students less than the existing dental schools in the state are charging out-of-state students. The 108 Florida residents that I mentioned before who are going to out-of-state schools, who did not choose to get their dental education here in Florida, those students in 2009 paid an average tuition equivalent to that of UCF in 2009 dollars. So what I want you to know is the tuition that we're charging is already being paid by almost half of the Florida residents who are currently in dental school, okay? And 1/3 of all dental students in the country enrolled today are paying more in, again, today's dollars, are paying more for their dental education than the UCF students will be. So this market rate tuition is something new for us as a state organization, but it's not new for the country, it's not new for dental education, and a third of the dental students enrolled today are already paying this. Now, some of you have asked about fees. Everyone's very good at probing and making sure that everything is clearly understood. And I know that someone in this audience said, well, what about the fees at UCF? Are there hidden fees? Are you going to, charge them more so that you can have this dental school without state appropriations? So I want to show you the answer to the fees question. This slide shows the 4-year total cost of tuition and fees, a comparison, again, in the last year of data we have, the fiscal year 2009-10 data, for the 2 existing dental schools and UCF. And let's focus here in the non-resident section. In the non-resident section, you can see that the total cost, 4-year cost of dental school is essentially the same. When you look at the actual figures, UCF is the smallest of the 3. Now, when you look at residents, the University of Florida for Florida residents is about half what the other schools are. And that half is made up by the state appropriation. And once again, I think that the University of Florida will not be harmed by UCF in terms of creating a competition for students because of the lower tuition. So we think that there are students available to come to our dental school and that they will, in fact, they already are paying the market rate tuition. So let me just summarize before we go on. We've shown that the dental program is an essential part of the Lake Nona Medical City and the economic impact that was promised and planned for that enterprise. Yes, there is a need for more dentists to meet the population growth and service needs. There is a need for more dental care in Central Florida, and there are qualified students who would apply for the program, who would pay the market rate tuition, and who would not compete with the University of Florida. So now, for just a few minutes, I want to turn our attention to the curriculum. We were asked to tell you a little bit about our curriculum. And what you see here is that we are proposing a 4-year Doctor of Dental Medicine degree program, starting with 60 students and ramping up to 100 students per year. The curriculum is clinically based and focused on producing independent entry-level general practitioners. And the curriculum has 4 primary themes: biomedical foundations, clinical foundations, dental public health professional practice, and primary dental care. I am going to speed through the 4 years just to show you that we did give very careful thought to the educational program. We consulted with national experts, and let's take a look. This is year 1. In the first year, we teach the foundations of dental medicine with a strong emphasis on biomedical sciences, clinical sciences, and ethical and professional practice. And the courses are there for you to see. In the second year, students continue the study of biomedical sciences and ethical and professional practice. We introduce them to primary dental care, and we expand the studies of clinical sciences. In the third year, they become practitioners under supervision and in settings where they will serve the indigent and underserved. And this happens in our dental primary care clinic and in service learning experiences out in the community, much as you've already heard. And I want to call your attention to the primary dental care clinic, which is 24 hours per week all year. And then last but not least, the fourth year rounds out the curriculum, and students are ready to practice and sit for their boards, and they take on some more specialized courses such as oral oncology, oral surgery, pediatric dentistry, etc. We've consulted with some of the best minds in dental medicine, including dental school deans from across the nation and in Florida, and our curriculum is well thought out and is a good start for a new medical dean who would be hired should we receive your approval. And the purpose of this proposed curriculum is really to provide the basis for determining the faculty and staff requirements so that we can make sure that our budget is on target. Should we receive approval from this Board of Governors, we would strive to meet this accreditation timetable. The initial accreditation would happen in July of 2013 before we could admit the first class. We anticipate recruiting students for the 2014 class with full accreditation in 2017 before they graduate in 2018. Now, before we move on to the budget, which I know you're all waiting to hear about, I just want to share with you some assumptions that were made. In building the budget, we consulted a number of dental school deans, those in the state of Florida. We also talked with the University of the Pacific, the University of Kentucky, and the Academy for Academic Leadership. And using that information, we created an operating budget that charges market rate tuition. We have a facility with an operating lease that is structured to support the curriculum and the dental services. Again, the class starts with 60 and then goes to 100 per year with 57 full-time faculty, 54 full-time administration and support staff, and no cost to the state. So, how much is this going to cost, and how are we going to pay for it? I'm going to walk you through this slide. I tried to take all of the information that was in our budget about the operating budget and get it for you on one slide. So what we have here, millions of dollars from 0 up to 45 million here, and then we have years, starting with 2012 and ending with 2024. The red bars show you total expenses for each of those years. Okay, and you'll see it ramps up and levels off. And by the way, this is the year we move into the new building, and that additional height, because you would kind of expect it to just go up straight, is the equipment and furniture that is needed to outfit the building. The green line represents revenue, total revenue, and the black line represents revenue from tuition and fees only. So the black line you can think of as if we had no revenue from a practice or no revenue from research, tuition and fees only, the black line. So in the early years, you can see that there's no significant revenue except for the $10 million donation, which is not anywhere on this chart. By fiscal year 2018, total revenues exceed expenses, and the total revenues exceed expenses by about $2.6 million. By fiscal year 2019, total revenues from tuition and fees alone exceed expenses, and that's by about $1.2 million. So you can see, once we get to 2017, 2018, the program is self-sustaining. Now the question is, how do we pay for these first few years and create this self-sustaining program? Well, fortunately for me and for you, Vice President Bill Merck is with us today, and he will describe for you the plans to provide the necessary support for the period of time when we are starting up our dental school. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. German. And that is something that I always get involved in as Vice President for Administration and Finance. When we talk about programs like this, one of my questions is always, well, how do we pay for this? And it's pretty interesting. Dr. German's staff has provided a slide that supplements this that I think is really excellent in helping to explain what we're doing and how we're going to pay for these things. What's added to the slide that you just saw is a little curve here, and that represents that $10 million gift that Dr. Hitt mentioned in the beginning of the presentation. And that covers the first couple almost into the third year of helping us get started as we go. Then the next line that's in here is university support. What does that mean exactly? One of the advantages of being a large university is we have a lot of cash flowing in and cash flowing out, which gives us some balances to work with. Our auxiliary enterprises are the source that we're looking for to help us get through this initial period. We can advance cash from our auxiliary balances in those first years to get us up as the student population and the tuition revenue ramps up and starts to overtake it. And then in the years beyond about 2018, we start to see repayment of those advances take place from that tuition that's coming in from the students as we're at full capacity. So I think it's a really good plan, and it's one of the ways that I think is great in the sense that we're saying that we can do this without state support. It's a plan that allows us to use our own resources to initially fund our project until we get it to the point that it's self-sustaining. It crosses over that point, and then we start to pay back those advances that we would put forth in the program. So I'm really, really pleased with that. The second part of this that I wanted to get into was the big cost that we'll get into is the building itself, about a $42 million building. How are we going to deal with that without going to the state for some help? We've gotten actually some help from the hard economic times we're in. And that sounds kind of strange, but there's a lot of contractors, a lot of builders, a lot of people out there that are looking for work to do and have been building up some substantial cash balances and need to deploy those cash balances in projects. Well, I've probably talked to 9 or 10 different groups of people that are interested in working with us in building this building and then leasing it to us. It's almost like Dr. Hitt was saying when we started the program, where people were coming to him and saying, how can I give to this program? What can I do to help? I'm starting to have people on a regular basis come to my office or make appointments so they can come in and talk about how they want to be involved and what they can put forth. And I spend about a good 45 minutes or an hour with them, and I talk about all the restrictions that we have on what we can do. I go over some of the items that are in the Board of Governors' debt management guidelines, the restrictions that we have, the extreme limitations we have on being able to provide collateral or other support to the program, and that has not deterred the ones that I've talked to. What we've said is, or what I've said to all of these folks, is that if this program is approved by this board, we will go out with some form of competition, probably a request for proposal type arrangement, where we'll outline the program, the building that we want to have built. I'm going to attach a copy of those debt management guidelines to the RFP so they can see the limitations that we have to work within, and then see what kind of proposals we get back to build the building and then lease that building to us under the short-term lease arrangements that we're required to operate on. And we talk about in these meetings sometimes the risk that they're undertaking and the risk that we're undertaking as well. So it's perfectly clear, and that has not deterred these people that have come in and are interested in working with us on it. Again, assuming that you approve this program for us, I would think the second step that we would have to do is then go forward and complete a good, strong financial plan that we would take back to our Board of Trustees and then bring to you for approval. And it's pretty clear in the programs that we've done before and the conversations that we've had, and it's also stated in the debt guidelines that we have to follow, that you look to the Division of Bond Finance and you look to Ben Watkins to vet the plans that we go over to determine if they make sense and if they meet all the statutory limitations and the debt guidelines. I've had conversations with Ben Watkins, one fairly recently in some depth, to go over what I'm talking to you about today, but in more detail. And he's assured me that he wants to be involved in helping vet the program, to look at the RFP that we would send out, and to help evaluate the appropriateness of any plan that we bring back to you. I think this has been really important. Another thing that I know that in the years I've worked with President Hitt, one of the things he's always said to me is, if you want me to be with you on the landing, be sure and include me on the takeoff. And I think that's absolutely true with Ben Watkins in the Division of Bond Finance as well. I want to make sure that I include Ben in the planning process for this so that he'll be with us on the landing when we bring and present the proposal to you, and it'll be one that you can have some confidence in, that meets all of the guidelines and the statutes that we have to fall within. I think it's a good plan. I'm going to stop my talking right here. But I can't leave without saying that it's always, I've worked in universities for a number of years, and it's always been exciting to me when, as a public university, we're able to use some ingenuity, some creativity, and reduce the burden on the taxpayers and use our own resources to help us achieve the goals that we're looking to accomplish. And this is one that I think really has a lot of promise. And I appreciate the opportunity, even though it's been brief, to go over this part of the plan. So with this, I'm going to turn back to Dr. Hitt, and he'll take us from here.
Well, thank you, Bill. The support for this proposal has been very strong in Central Florida. We've had support from our elected officials, from health organizations, and from our partners in the medical professions. Let me share with you just a small sampling of comments from community leaders for our proposal. Orlando's mayor, Buddy Dyer, has understood the importance of the medical city from our earliest discussions. He traveled many miles and talked to a great many people in support of our original proposal. Seeing what has evolved at Lake Nona in the past 5 years, Buddy is a more enthusiastic supporter than ever, and he strongly endorses our dental school. Orange County Mayor Teresa Jacobs, like her predecessor, Mayor Rich Crotty, now a member of our Board of Trustees, realizes the importance of the medical city for the economy of Central Florida. She too hopes to see the establishment of the dental college. Rick Weddle recently moved to Florida from the North Carolina Research Triangle, and as president and CEO of Metro Orlando Economic Development Commission, Rick recognizes the importance of a dental program in filling out the medical city. He also appreciates the broader vision of making Orlando an international medical and dental destination. Sesh Thacker from Tavistock Group sees the dental program as an essential part of the Lake Nona Medical City. He strongly supports UCF's dental program on the land that Tavistock donated. Dr. Dan Kelly, the scientific director of Sanford Burnham, sees the potential research synergy that can take place with the UCF dental program. He also knows that research is unlikely if a private dental school becomes a part of the medical city. The Orlando VA Medical Center is our next door neighbor in the medical city, and we have a strong relationship with the VA at the current outpatient clinic. Tim Lazert, the medical director at the Orlando VA Medical Center, sees a tremendous opportunity for us to enrich the education of our dental students at the VA hospital. Our other medical partners are also very supportive. Sherry Soteric, President and CEO of Orlando Health, recognizes the economic, health care, and research benefits. Roger Oxendale from the Moores Children's Hospital sees the unique opportunity for a partnership with the hospital's pediatric dental health program. The comment of Dr. Maria DeMoss, the Executive Dental Director for the Orange County Health Department, reflects the opinions of many of our regional community agencies. She welcomes the added resources that our school will create to improve the dental health of Central Floridians. You see on the upper left of that slide a statement from our mission statement, an excerpt from our mission statement. The university anchors the Central Florida city-state in meeting its economic, cultural, intellectual, environmental, and societal needs. This states our commitment to the welfare of city-state Orlando. We serve 11 counties and 3.6 million people in Central Florida, and UCF is proud of its continuing contributions to our region. We strive to be of as well as in Central Florida. In a time of declining economic activity around the globe, Central Florida has a proven economic engine in the medical city at Lake Nona that we seek to strengthen. By fulfilling its promise to build a top-quality medical school, UCF proved that it can deliver. We have other attributes that support our proposal. We bring the resources of the second-largest university in the nation to this project. We provide access to higher education for both stellar freshmen and hard-working community and state college transfers. We've learned to be nimble, flexible, and creative. We bring these lessons to the creation of a first-class dental college. We've been nationally recognized as a research university. The nation's premier professional organization for the advancement of technology, the IEEE, has named UCF third on its list of Research That Matters 2010 U.S. Patent Power, it was entitled. I think we finished third to the University of California system and the University of Texas system. Not a bad positioning for our young university. The Carnegie Foundation designated UCF a very high research activity institution, its highest ranking in that category. We bring to this project our strong track record for economic development. UCF anchors a $5 billion simulation and training industry in Central Florida. We're co-founder of the Florida High-Tech Corridor Council that has funded more than 1,100 grants for an economic benefit to our part of the state in excess of $1.3 billion. We've also established 9 business incubators in the Central Florida area, and we've now found that the counties in which they are located value them so much that they are paying for them themselves. Finally, I think you will agree that we've proven that we know how to envision, design, build, staff, and operate a first-class health education institution. The Liaison Committee on Medical Education, in its provisional accreditation report, praised Dean Deborah German's dynamic vision, the college's exemplary curriculum, and the state-of-the-art medical education building. Let me cut to the chase. Why should you approve our request for a UCF College of Dental Medicine? Well, we'll bring to Florida additional health care education as well as dental care at no cost to the state. In fact, in a little more than a decade, the dental school will provide significant revenue to the health care campus. The dental school complements the mission of the health sciences campus as well as its programs. In fact, so central is the dental school to the vision of the medical city that if UCF doesn't build it, someone else almost certainly will. The regional economic impact is real, and for the state, it represents an infinite return on investment. Revenue benefits divided by 0, I suspect, would be infinity. More seriously, construction will contribute more than $72 million to the economy, and operations will contribute another $68 million annually. Additional revenue will be generated by contracts, grants, and clinical care. There are many ways for the dental and medical programs to enhance one another. Some are economies of personnel, such as having existing administrators serve both schools. Others are efficiencies in the curriculum. For instance, dental students will take basic medical classes. Space can be shared between the two schools, with each using the facilities of the other. In short, building the dental school adjacent to the medical school creates many opportunities. Finally, dental care in Central Florida will be enhanced. The structure of the program, with its 200-chair primary dental care clinic, will provide direct dental services to the underserved residents of Central Florida. Nearly 6 years ago, I came to you with a plan, a partner, and a promise. Since that time, we've delivered a medical city at Lake Nona that is benefiting our entire state. We have exceeded our original plans, added partners that were unthought of then, and kept our promise to further the interests of our region and our state. The medical city at Lake Nona is a powerful demonstration of our city, surrounding counties, and state partnering with an entrepreneurial public university for the public good. Once again, we're presenting you with a plan, a partner, and a promise. We ask for your support. Thank you so much for this opportunity to present our ideas to you, and of course we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, President Hitt. Do you have any questions for Governor Temple?
Yeah, President Hitt, someplace in here, you said, or the presentation said that if the University of Central Florida doesn't do it, you're going to have a private dental school that's going to do this. I clearly understand the economic impact as a community developer, real estate developer, of both your proposal, and I can understand why Orlando's interested in this. I can understand why Tallahassee's also interested in this, because it does add great economic benefit. But if the university doesn't do it, what's wrong with a private institution doing this?
The likelihood is that you would have what I would describe as an underperforming and underachieving medical school. It's not going to be integrated with the medical college. And you're not likely to have from an out-of-state private entry the research component that you almost certainly will have from a dental college that's part of a medical center tied to a major research university. So, you know, would it have some benefit? Of course. The same dollars that if we spend about the same dollars on the building, that's there either way. But what you'll get from the investment is going to be less. And I would just say that from the standpoint of fully developing the medical city, there's no question which would be the stronger entry between UCF and an out-of-state private institution.
If there was a private institution that did this, is there any opportunities, and we didn't do this, is there any opportunities to venture with them on the research side and the medical school side?
Hard to see how you would, how we would do it. I wouldn't say that it's impossible, but I think it's much less likely. And, why wouldn't you do it if it's no cost?
I've got some cost questions.
Well, please ask them.
Yeah, okay. The building, you're talking about going into debt.
No.
Right? No? It's a lease back, right? So that's debt.
We have a lot of limitations on what we can do in the way of debt or lease backs and those kind of things, or capital leases. What I've talked to the folks that are interested in working with us on is that we could do no more than, and I worked with the Division of Bond Finance on this, but no more than probably a 5-year lease with at our sole option to renew it. The risk would be on them. If they didn't renew it, they would have the building, but no obligation on our part. We have none of our balance sheet committed to it, no collateral. It's their building, they lease it to us. And then at some point when it's paid off, it becomes ours. Now, I presented that to a number of different companies, about 9 different ones, and they all understood that, and they're interested in pursuing that concept with us.
So whether we did this, it'd all be contingent upon whether you can find somebody that'll build this and lease it to you, right? I mean, that's your proposal.
And we would have to come back to you with a definitive partner plan and have you approve it before we could do it.
The next question is on page 3 of your Appendix C. You've got $42.3 million worth of startup costs, and And where is that money coming? You said that's coming from what, the foundation or what?
The first part of it comes from the $10 million donor. That's the very first start.
So it's 42.31 less 10.
And then we take the rest of it, comes out of our auxiliary enterprises are things like our housing, our parking. We've got a number of different self-supporting entities on campus that have a revenue stream that comes in every year, expenses that go out. But just like our checking account, there's a residual in there that's fairly substantial because of our size. So we would advance some of that residual, some of that cash balance towards those first few years. And then when that revenue line from the tuition comes up and we start to make a profit, so to speak, or an excess of our expenses, then we repay those balances to our own internal auxiliaries.
All right, thanks.
Okay, Governor Tripp, then Governor Carlson. Governor Tripp.
I guess a couple of questions. I'm kind of like John. The one thing. I'm sorry. The one thing that I saw, you said there's no borrowing, but when you showed the graph, there's 3 or 4 years in there in which you are using university money.
Correct. Balance.
But you're only going to sign up for a 5-year lease. They're crossing each other in there somewhere. That's you know, it's not totally clear. You are investing the money, and you are going to negotiate this lease that you say you're only obligated for 5 years, but there's a couple of years in there that you're still using university money beyond that 5-year lease. I mean, is that right or not?
It's close.
Okay.
There's when I talk about
the other thing is, if you're generating enough income from these other facilities, I've always had this issue, and you know on the board it's not new. When do we ever reduce the cost to students, and when do we ever start returning some of this? If you're earning that and you have that ability, the question is it intended to be used for these kind of projects? I don't believe so, but that's just an issue that I have. Because what I really believe is when we say we're not using any kind of state funding, we are using it. I didn't see the percentage that you're going to take out for all of the administrative time, et cetera, that you're going to reimburse the university from the dental school for Dr. Hitt's time, your
Sure.
time, all of the other things. Is that in there?
Yes.
And what percentage did you use?
We typically charge our auxiliaries about 8.5% of everything that they spend that goes as a reimbursement to the E&G entities that provided support to those auxiliaries. That would include me, Dr. Hitt, and others. So, and we're keeping track of anything that, say, any of the faculty or staff there in the College of Medicine that do some work with this College of Dentistry, that's being tracked and reimbursed by the College of Dentistry. The balances that I'm talking about, there's probably about 20 or so, maybe more than that, 30 different auxiliaries. The largest ones is probably half a dozen very large ones, but they build up these reserves partly because of seasonality. Some of them will build up a cash balance, and then it'll go down in the spring and then go back up in September, things like that. But they're building, like I'll give you parking services for an example. What we try to do there is we build up cash balances so when we build our next parking garage, for an example, we want to be able to put a couple million down as a down payment on those garages. In housing, they build up reserves so they can replace roofs, they can replace all kinds of equipment that fails over time. They're pretty healthy. What happens right now with those balances is they're earning very little in this climate. What we do with those balances that belong to housing or residence life or something like that that are being used to advance to the College of Dentistry. We've also calculated that from the proceeds of the tuition, when we ramp up and have it right, those repayments will carry an interest to the College of Dentistry at least equal to what those balances would have earned for housing or parking or whatever else in the places they're parked currently. So they don't lose anything. And and they don't withdraw them at the same time. So like housing will be building up something for 8 or 9 years for some major replacements, parking in a different sequence and all that, so that in combination there's always a fairly decent balance there.
Thank you. And Dr. Hitt, my question to you is, we have another presentation that's going to come from the University of Florida. My question is, why are we not proceeding with trying to build a partnership? The board has talked a number of times, Ann Duncan's led it, that there are occasions when partnerships might make more sense. The University of Florida is already there. And
Yes.
what I'm hearing is that it will be good for Central Florida. Well, the University of Florida is in Central Florida. They already have the dental school. They already have all of those. Why do we have to build a new model? Why can't we be going towards a partnership with UCF and the University of Florida to bring their quality and your quality, put them together so the people of the state of Florida get this additional dental education if it's needed? And quite frankly, I'm not totally convinced that the need is like we're hearing, but if it is, and we accept that, why wouldn't we first try to see if the two universities who already have a presence there can't figure out a way to partner and bring these additional 200 students there and accomplish what you want to accomplish, which is more research, putting a clinic there and helping the people in Central Florida?
Well, I think your definition of Central Florida is a little broader than many would hold, Governor Tripp. I'm not sure that Joe Glover would necessarily think that he's in Central Florida in Gainesville. It's a couple of hour drive up there, but that's
It's
fine.
not much further though than FAU, Boca Raton to Indian River. You're pretty close.
Well, be that as it may. As it happens, in recent days, I've had a conversation with President Manchin about the possibility of some collaboration. We have not gotten to the point where I could even tell you what that might look like. And so we decided not to reference that in our presentation today, but rather to wait and see what transpires when Dr. Manchin and his dental dean meet with I think the scheduled time now is the 21st for a meeting between them and Dean German and me. So there may be more to follow, but I didn't want to bring that up without even with Dr. Manchin not even here today, and certainly without any real discussion other than it would be interesting and possibly beneficial. We're kind of at that level, but we are a partnership university. We have a record of working with other institutions in a number of beneficial ways. So we will certainly take advantage of the opportunity to talk with President Manchin and his dean, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay, Governor Carlson.
Well, Mr. Merck, I have another question for you. Just so I understand this, and I've had a long conversation with the president and the dean. On page 3 of your Appendix C, it says the startup cost totaling $42.31 million from the university resources that will be repaid by fiscal year 24. That's what you're talking about, the auxiliary funds that you all have to run an institution the size of your all's.
The 10 million from philanthropy plus the auxiliary balances, and they all don't come on day one. I mean, we ramp into that over several years.
Okay, now isn't the 10 million on top of that?
No, should be part of it. I don't have that page there.
I think we accrue a balance on the loan of 42.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's what Dr. Hill was just saying was we accrue a balance on the loan of about $42 million.
Okay, so you're going to borrow $42 million from yourself, or you go to a bank, but you're basically
Not go to bank. We'd advance that from our own balances.
And in theory, you're a state university, so there is some state risk here. And so we're going to borrow money, and you're going to pay it back based upon a business plan that you've presented here.
Right.
That, as I understand it, in year 10 charges over $90,000 per student in tuition and fees.
I couldn't tell you what the tuition and fees are in year 10.
It's
We'll look it up. We'll
it's
look it up.
$35 million plus divided by 395. So that's a pretty aggressive business plan. That you're going to be able to find somebody that's got that kind of money in year 10, because year 10 is not that far away, as I get older. So
What I'd be pleased with if happened here is what we wanted to do today is bring to you a program, a dental program that we think is really viable and has a lot of merit. The financial plan, where we get an actual partner and we know the interest rates we're going to be dealing with when they look at their return on the funds that they put in the building, the rents they charge us. In our pro forma, we work with things like 8 3/4% return. We hope and think we can get something a whole lot better than that. We even ran one pro forma that was using about a 12.5% return to the partner just to see if it could stand that stress, and it could. So there are some things about the financial plan that we still need to work out to get into more detail. But in a broad brush sense, I really believe this will work. And we will have to come back to you with more detail and prove to you that this would work.
And thank you, sir. One comment I would have to the board. I'm struggling with this because I really like John Hitt, but I need a better reason than the fact that I really like the guy. But this is a model, a business model that we ought to think about in general. Because I think there are presidents that sit around the table that are thinking, if we can do this for a college of dentistry, why can't we build our colleges of pharmacy or the next law school and just charge $50,000, $60,000 a year in tuition? And are we really a public university then? Or maybe that's what we ought to be doing. So I think this is a big issue other than just the individual business plan and proposal being presented by UCF. Thank you.
Hey, Governor Hussaini.
This is really hard for me because I wanted to sit here and pound on the table and says, we've got to approve this. I want a dental school there. Dr. Hitt, what you have done at Lake Nona, which I'm very familiar with, is amazing. If the rest of the country looked like Lake Nona, what you've done, the job you created, we would not be in the recession today. There is very few places in the country, and I fly all over the country on a weekly basis, that is look like Lake Nona. So congratulations to you, congratulations to everything you've done, all the partnership that you have created. On the dental school, I'm all for it. But today, with what you have presented, your CFO presented, and I'm very familiar with the buildings and leasing it back and just on. And the way you use the school money, maybe you put our hope way too much up there because you said no money from the state. We do not need any from the state. We raise the money. But today is very clear, I think, that at least for a while, you're going to use the state money. And today, this board is in the most conservative mode that there is because of the shortage from the state. I understand that you say, well, we use some of our money and then we'll get that money back. All of that is true, other than if something goes wrong. And in 2006, the real estate, just came down like nobody believed, and we're just afraid of what if could happen to us. Do you think that perhaps, as you mentioned it yourself, you can get with the University of Florida, with other partners, kind of tightening up this program to more exact level and come back to this board so we can really put our finger on what is it going to look like?
Well, we'll certainly have the meeting with President Natch and I believe it's Dean Dolan. and once we know what the opportunities look like to them as well as to us, we'd be in a better position to evaluate it. So yes, we can come back with a clearer definition of what might be possible in partnership with the University of Florida. Let me just say that I really don't accept that the auxiliary monies are state monies. They were never appropriated. These are not state tax dollars. They were never appropriated by the legislature. These are dollars that we have accrued by prudent operation of auxiliary enterprises at the university. So we're not talking about state money. However, there is a risk here. I guess my comfort level is fine with this, but I guess I still have the old feeling I did. You know, I worked for a number of years in central administration in private universities, 2 different ones. You know, if you fail, you fail, and you shouldn't ask for somebody to bail you out. So I think we can make it work. I'm confident we can and will. But you have a fiduciary responsibility as a board, so we certainly will work with you to try to satisfy you that what we are proposing is sound. Nothing else we can do.
I totally understand the auxiliary money is not the state money. This is the money that you all have through the foundation. Else work so.
No, it's
no.
not.
I'm sorry. To other means, you know, getting the auxiliary money. I understand that, but at some point you are going to use the state. When you give you an example, when you go in any with a construction company, let's say, that build the buildings, there's no construction company will come build your buildings that would say you do not have to guarantee the rent. That if tomorrow, 2 years from now, that we don't get enough students and you want to shut down that building, that University of Central Florida will not be responsible. I'll be surprised that will be such a deal we in place. Everything that I have seen, and I have seen many of these agreements in place that between universities and construction companies, that they do this kind of joint effort. But at some point, the university is responsible for part or all of the lease, the rent, whatever you call them.
That's been the traditional way of doing it. I can just tell you, I've spoken to about, I'd say, 8 different construction companies right now. One of them just Monday of this week that was telling me that they have right at $1 billion in cash built up that they need to deploy in construction, and there's not that many traditional projects out there. When I explained that if for some unfathomable reason this dental college failed at the end of 5 years and we didn't renew the lease, they would end up with a building that they would own right there. That would be the extent of our commitment. And they thought that that would be workable in this climate for them for several reasons. One, they believe they're willing to take the risk because they know that our track record is strong, and they really believe we will make this thing work. And they're willing to take the risk that they would have a building on their hands at the end of 5 years without us being in there as a tenant and with no backup. And that is a risk they'll have to take. What will happen if you approve the dental program, we would then have to do step 2. We'd have to come back to you, working with the Division of Bond Finance and everybody else, with an agreement with a construction company that would lay all of that out with a clear and complete understanding of the risk. If we can't actually come forward with something like that in the end, then it's over for us. So I've had, like I said, at least 8 groups come to me understanding that. Now, understand at this point of the game, they all are wearing their marketing hats. And when we say, okay, let's get down to business, they'll come back with at least 50 lawyers, and we'll have all kind of stuff in the document that we'll have to go through and weed out and go back and forth. But when we're done, we won't be able to come back to you unless we have an agreement that shows that they're at risk if we can't make this thing work within a prescribed time frame.
Now, you said that working with the Division of Finance and
to make sure
issuing
that
bond.
they won't issue. No, we're not talking about working with them to issue bonds or anything. But in the debt guidelines that the board put out, it says in there that when we present a financial plan like this to you for some capital project, that you will use the Division of Bond Finance as a consultant, so to speak, to look at the plan and advise the board as to whether they believe it meets all of the statutory requirements and the bond guidelines.
Have you done that? Have you had any preliminary conversation?
Yes, I have.
With them?
I have. And they said that they would welcome the opportunity to work with us as we develop an RFP to go out to the companies to make it very clear what they're proposing, and then that they would look at the documents that come back and that we work back and forth with before it ever comes to you, so that now they're not going to opine necessarily on whether in the long term it'll work or not. What they will tell you is that it meets all of the statutory requirements, your own guidelines are met, and that sort of thing, that it's a clean proposal. And again, I know I sound like a broken record to some extent, but we have to come back to you with a draft contract with a construction company or a bank or some other financial entity, whatever it might be, that shows you that they're taking the kind of risk that does not put any of our assets or any of our funds at risk beyond what we agree to in the document that you would see. If we can't do that, then we're dead in the water. If we can do it, then we're good.
Thank you. Governor Duncan?
President Hitt, again, I applaud your entrepreneurialism and how you guys have approached this. And we've talked through a number of times, a number of different questions. In the essence of time, though, I guess maybe I'll just kind of suffice it to say one thing that I'm still concerned about is the treatment of the specialty programs in your clinical practice. And so as you have your discussions with UF, I think it's particularly important you guys talk about that, because I think that, you know, to charge the kind of rates that you're looking to charge and not have an array of potential specialty opportunities is potentially challenging.
Yes.
Yes, I concur with the concerns of Governor Maury, but agreeing with Governor Duncan. There's more to dentistry. The Florida Trend said we have too many dentists. There's more to dentistry than just drilling teeth and cleaning teeth. And these specialties are critically important. And I'm confident that that's going to be something you'll concentrate on. I just went through 4 implants at a cost of over $40,000. I believe in competition. I believe in enterprise. Let's get more implant dentists, please. Okay.
Okay, Governor Yost.
Could I address the specialty question? When we announced that we were thinking about doing this, both of our hospital partners in Medical City, Nemours Children's Hospital and the VA, came to us. The VA is building, I believe it's a 20-chair dental clinic, and they already have some specialty rotations in their non-Lake Nona clinic, and they immediately called us and said, when you're ready, we want to build specialties with you. And the CEO at Nemours came and said the same thing. Pediatric dentistry, we need you. If you build the dental school, we're right there. So we're not presenting a financial plan right now for that. But I think when you look at the Medical City and you see its potential, I just want everyone to know that's in the future.
Okay, Governor Yost.
2 quick things, I think. First, I was a bit surprised in the business plan you never mentioned the Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine dental school that's opening up in Bradenton, which obviously affects all these numbers some. I think more importantly, I'm looking at a website called the 10 most expensive dental schools to attend, and it's clear to me that your model puts you in the top 10. I'm not sure that's someplace we want to be in the top 10, and I worry a bit about having a state university system. Most of those are private, by the way. Having set up a model where we're going to be in the top 10 most expensive places to get an education. More bothersome, perhaps, is if you look, there's another listing of the top 10 easiest schools to get in, dental schools to get into, and there's almost a complete overlap between the 10 most easy schools to get into and the 10 most expensive. And I'm not sure that's someplace we want to be either. So both those things worry me about this business model and the proposed tuition.
Okay.
Could I answer that? With regard to the expense of the dental school, I don't know if it was clear, but if you take the tuition that we're charging, of course, we're talking years out into the future. If you compare it in today's dollars, we're actually not in the top 10, and we're charging less than the 2 existing dental schools in the state are currently charging out-of-state students. So I just want...
Nova Southeast is number 9. And remember, we're not talking out-of-state students alone. We're talking in-state students, too. These numbers are, most of these are private, so it doesn't matter. The few, I guess there's probably none here that are in-state. I think you'd find you're going to be in the top 10 or darn close to it in price. You know. Yeah. And if it's a state university system school, presumably at least part of what we want are Florida students to go to it, you know, who are not thinking about paying out-of-state tuition.
Well, if your model is that anything at a state university is going to be at a subsidized tuition level and therefore inexpensive, this is not for you.
Sure.
If you're willing to consider, as we have been asked to consider at various times by other institutions, market rate tuition, I think this deserves some consideration.
Governor Tripp.
I just have a quick comment. It bothered me a little bit when it was stated that these monies from the auxiliaries in some way aren't state money. Auxiliaries are set up for financing mechanisms, but they're approved through the system, and it's money that comes from the students, and I believe it is student money, state money. I never see the difference between the two, and I always worry about the fact that we have this special relationship to these monies, and I'm uncomfortable when I hear the fact that somehow it's somebody else's money. That auxiliary is only there to benefit the university and the students. And when you look at their mission statements and why they're there, that's what they're there for. And they have to be darn sure that when they're using that money, that they're comfortable that that money is not going somewhere other than the purpose for which it was set up. I'm not sure auxiliaries are set up to loan money to other facilities. And that may be a question. I'd like Vicki sometime to give me a personal answer. Are auxiliaries intended to be funding sources for other parts of the university? And not today, Vicki, but could you speak to that for a minute?
I just wanted to say a couple things. Well, let me just be clear. When I say not state money, maybe I misspoke in the sense that what I mean is the taxpayers are not putting the money up for this. This is coming out of the university's coffers, so to speak. It's not tax money. We're not asking for the taxpayers in Florida to subsidize this. Right now, these balances that we're talking about have intended purposes for those particular auxiliaries, but where they're sitting right now is just invested in money markets or bonds or something like that until they're intended to be used by these auxiliaries. What we're proposing to do is, instead of having it sitting, say, in our Treasury Bank, Bank of America or something like that, that we use these funds, instead of sitting there, we apply them to this purpose and give those auxiliaries the interest that they would have earned on those funds in the other place. So they'll end up, in the end, going to the uses for which they were intended. It's just in the interim, while they're sitting there as cash balances, we're deploying them here as opposed to a money market or a short-term bond fund.
Governor Perez.
Just one comment, since I was the one who got to endure the market rate tuition conversation. Governor Colson mentioned earlier that we need to have a conversation about market rate. We had that conversation. We've adopted a market rate model for in-state and out-of-state students. We did that all summer. So that conversations have been had. I just wanted to make sure that was on the record, because that we've been down that path for hundreds of hours and agreed to that months ago.
I'm glad you spoke up on that, Governor Perez. We weren't vocal in that discussion, and this is the first time I think we really proposed anything in that area. I have to say we've not been the pioneers here, and I guess it would be good for all people around the table to remind themselves about who has been and what they were talking about.
Okay, Governor Hussaini.
Mr. President, Do you think we can bring President Obama here and look at Lake Nona and all the work you've done, all the hiring you've done, and maybe they can fund the construction of this this school, since that would add on jobs and, you know, train our students and teach them and on and on and on.
That'd be a great idea.
Okay, one last comment before we go on to the last University of Florida. But in the collaboration discussion, you talked about, I guess, University of Florida and UCF coming together and potentially have a conversation. Does it also include Florida A&M as well, or?
We have not. I think the model that they have is very, very different than ours. I'm not sure there would be a good matchup between University of Florida and UCF's model, but I don't see the community-based model, the rural emphasis. You know, that's not something we've really looked at.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much.